So what if Jackson Arnold hits the ground running in his first season as starting quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners, which is coincidentally the Oklahoma Sooners' first season as an SEC conference school? What if he's everything that he was touted to be as Elite 11 champion and National High School Player of the Year after his senior season at Denton Guyer in Texas? What would that do to the narrative going around about these Oklahoma Sooners in their first season in the vaunted SEC? What will that do? Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football's Sooner Magic Podcast. I am your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love Oklahoma football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of Hall of Fame College Football's Sooner Magic Podcast. If you've been listening to me or any number of other Oklahoma content creators over the last couple of weeks, there's no doubt you have heard a cranky bunch of Sooner fans with regard to the expectation level of our Sooners in the first season of SEC football, particularly when you contrast it with the number of people that are fawning over those hated Texas Shorthorns in their first season of SEC play, despite the fact that Oklahoma beat Texas in 2023. And did so by being the more physical of the two teams, and in the trenches especially. There's just not a lot of love going around out there. As a matter of fact, you had FanDuel, the online gambling site and daily fantasy sports website, that projected all of the SEC win totals and had OU at 7.5 wins for 2024, which, by the way, opened at 6.5 wins, but enough of us smart Sooner fans jumped in there and bet the over big on that to move the line to 7.5, which to me is still really low in comparison. Now, I think that there is a number of reasons why you could probably maybe halfway understand it. The 7.5, not the 7.5 so much, but lower expectations when you look at the schedule that the Sooners come in and play in their first season in the SEC. You've got games against a 12-win Alabama team, games against, obviously, an 11-win Texas program, not to mention an 11-win Ole Miss, an 11-win Missouri, a 10-win LSU, and a 9-win Tennessee throughout the season. That's a tough road to hoe. But what I would tell you is, as I've said this in the past, I don't think that any one of those teams, with the exception of possibly Texas, according to your recruiting rankings, and then Alabama, who's been recruiting at the top for a long time, none of the rest of these programs have the level of talent on their roster that Oklahoma has. None of them. This is almost definitely true at the quarterback position as well. And I know that, hey, look, I've been one of those guys that has always been on the side of Dylan Gabriel when it comes to hoping that Oklahoma headed into the SEC with an experienced quarterback at the helm, despite the fact that I think it's pretty clear that talent-wise, Jackson Arnold had Dylan beat in spades, right? Now, that being said, and I'll still continue to say that you would probably, heading into your first year in the toughest conference in America, it wouldn't have hurt to have the experience of a guy like Dylan Gabriel, who's going into his 7th year in college football. at Oregon. I think he's going to be a tremendous asset for the Ducks. But I think that the things that we saw from Dillon Gabriel last year was we saw he maxed out his ability and his talent as to what he could do in this offense. And it wasn't quite what you're going to see most likely from Jackson Arnold. Yeah, we saw Jackson have a bit of a struggle at times during the Alamo Bowl against Arizona. The speed of the game was probably a wake-up call for him a little bit. And I think that he had a timing issue as far as getting the ball out on time. And I also think that, the couple of times they had some key issues, from some of his receivers that didn't help him as well. Now, what I would ask you is what if he got all of those bad plays out of his system in the Alamo Bowl? His interceptions, poor timing, ill-fated, probably balls that he shouldn't have thrown. What if the spring season and fall camp see him improve exponentially heading into his first season in the SEC? And what if he does more resemble the guy who at Denton Guyer in his senior season was the Elite 11 winner and eventually National High School Player of the Year, and taking his team back to a deep run in the 6A playoffs in Texas, where they lost to eventual state champion Duncanville? What if you see more of that? What if you see the 5-star plus guy that everybody expects to see at some point of his career in Norman? A lot of people are doubting him. You had your Uncle Lou's of the world doubting him. I just saw John Kurtz doubting Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold on his show for whatever reason. Right? Got to have something to talk about, I guess. That SEC podcast with Michael Brand welcomed on Barrett Sallee, who trashed Oklahoma in every way he possibly could, glossed over Jackson Arnold a little bit, but pretended as if Oklahoma hasn't gotten better and that they are, since Lincoln Riley's gone, according to him, they're not getting quarterbacks that are capable of winning the Heisman Trophy. Let's take a listen to that.
Won 11 games. Now Oklahoma's coming into the league. That I didn't realize these two hated each other to the level they do. So I'm trying to get you in trouble here, Barrett. Who has a brighter future moving forward in the SEC? Oklahoma under Venables or Missouri under Drinkwitz?
Missouri. I think Missouri does. And I've gone back and forth with Oklahoma, man. I don't know about you. I've just kind of gone back and forth. Like, what can they be? We all know that Oklahoma has contended for national. Well, I say contended. They've at least, in theory, contended, right? But that was with a situation with Lincoln Riley where the method worked to a point, right? They had the ceiling. Now, the national championship ceiling was way higher, but the ceiling was still pretty high, right? You don't have Lincoln. You're not bringing in superstar quarterbacks. I can't wait to see what Jackson Arnold does this year, but you aren't bringing in those Heisman caliber quarterbacks. And defensively, yeah, you've taken a step up, obviously, with Brent Venables. And sort of like we joke about LSU, you're not god awful defensively. So that's certainly a step up from those Lincoln Riley teams. But is that enough? Is that the right recipe for success in the SEC? Because if Brent Venables doesn't succeed, doesn't have that ultra dynamic offense, are those transfer quarterbacks going to want to go there? Or high school quarterbacks going to want to go there? No, they're not going to have that selling point, right? They're not going to have that ability to market that position. So I think a roundabout way to answer a question is that I think Oklahoma will probably be an average to above average football team in the SEC.
There's so many ways that I could go from there, but let's start with a couple of these things. What can they be? They aren't bringing in those superstar quarterbacks. And what if Brent Venables is not able to have the electric type offenses that you've seen at Oklahoma? particularly under Lincoln Riley, he says, is the defense being built going to be enough? Let's start with this. Lincoln Riley did not start the Heisman trend at Oklahoma. They won 2 before he ever got there. Should have won another one with Adrian Peterson at least. Offense was never a problem, even with a defensive-minded coach like Bob Stoops, who brought Brent Venables along with his brother to Norman as part of his co-defensive coordinators back in 1999, and they won a national title in 2000. They played for a number of other national titles coming up short, but continually put good defenses on the field and explosive offenses on the field. In Brent Venables' first 2 years, the offenses under Jeff Lebby finished in the top 15 in the country in total offense and scoring offense, and top 5 in the country in total offense and scoring offense. Lebby's off to Mississippi State, but Seth Littrell not only was able to keep Jackson Arnold in the fold, he was also able to get another state semifinalist from Texas in Michael Hawkins, vastly underrated and very capable of being a Heisman contending type of quarterback, along with Brandon Zerberg, another 4-star stud from the East Coast. Look, offense is not an issue under Brent Venables, but it's easy for these guys to make these kind of proclamations. Let's go into a couple of other things. Why this offense can be good and why I would expect for Jackson to be very, very successful in year 1. I think it's easy to assume that you probably struggle coming into the SEC. Coach, I talked about it the other night. We've talked about it plenty on our show that, listen, as a true sophomore, it's your first year as the true starter. You could expect some growing pains for Jackson Arnold. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And the fact that he did get a start in the Alamo Bowl, and he had some ups and downs in the game. For all the interceptions that he had, he also threw 2 really good touchdown balls, one of which was throwing kind of on the run. He's able to open up his hips and hit the back corner of the end zone. Jaden Gibson on that pass, great play by both players. He hit Brennan Thompson in stride on a 60-yard bomb, which is something you would never see out of Dylan Gabriel. Oftentimes, receivers were trying to wait on it. The other part that I would look at is that, look, you can say what you want, but Bill Bedenbaugh, the offensive line coach, they're going to protect him. This offensive line, they've got some guys in the portal, not to mention the guys that they've brought in the last couple of years in recruiting that expect to make a big move this year, particularly under his tutelage. This is a coach that puts out first rounder after first rounder after first rounder in the NFL draft. I'm not worried about the offensive line. Is your wireless company giving you a case of the what in the why is my wireless bill so expensive? Question: why are we paying so much for wireless service? Is it for speed, coverage, data, 5G access, mobile hotspot? Well, our new partners at Hall of Fame College Football, Mint Mobile, they have all these features. And for way, way less than big wireless. Like way, way less. As low as $15 a month. You can get signed up and activate your service immediately without having to leave your home. Mint Mobile reimagined the wireless process, making it easy and online. No more stores, no salespeople, and no giving. With Mint Mobile, you get all the features you become accustomed to with big wireless, the nation's largest 5G network, and service for as low as $15 a month. To start saving today, just log on to our partner website, trymintmobile.com/HOF. Again, that's trymintmobile.com/HOF. You can get signed up and activate your service immediately. Big Wireless wants you to believe they're the only option. Here's the deal. Big Wireless. You get comparable service to Big Wireless. You don't have to talk to a salesperson to do it. Largest 5G network in the country, as low as $15 a month. Sign up for Mint Mobile today so you can stop getting by Big Wireless. And the fact is, the guy flat out has more talent than almost anybody you've seen at Oklahoma, save for maybe Kyler Murray, Sam Bradford. He's the highest rated recruit since ESPN started tracking recruits to sign at Oklahoma at quarterback. Again, this is a school that since 2000 has 4 Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. It's pretty impressive what you have in this kid. And you can doubt him all you want to, but here's the other reason that I don't. When you start looking at his receiving core and the weapons that he has at his disposal, as I said, you've got the running backs that you've got coming back have both shown the ability to be very good. Gavin Sawchuk came into his own at the latter part of last year, had a big turnaround for him. Javante Barnes, as a freshman, was much better than he was last year, where he was nicked up a little bit. The number one running back in the country who decided to come to Oklahoma rather than USC with Lincoln Riley, who Barrett just told you is so much better at recruiting on that side of the ball. How's that working out, Barrett, if you actually look at recruiting rankings? This is such an easy narrative, but let's take a look at some of these other weapons at the disposal of Jackson Arnold. He doesn't have to get locked into any one person. You've got Nick Anderson coming back, the number one threat coming back as a receiver he had 38 receptions, 798 yards, 21 yards per catch, and tied for the team lead with Drake Stoops with 10 touchdowns. Jaden Gibson comes back as well, 14 receptions, 375, 5 touchdowns at 26.8 yards per catch. Andrew Anthony hopefully comes back healthy. The former Michigan transfer had 27 receptions, 429 yards, 1 touchdown at 15.9 yards per catch before getting injured in the Red River game against Texas. Jalil Farouk, 45 receptions, 694, 2 touchdowns, 15.4 yards per catch, coming back for his senior season. Hopefully he gets rid of the fumble issues that he had last season. Jacquez Petaway, who had 11 receptions on the season for 70 yards. You also had Brennan Thompson, who towards the end of the season showed what a big-time threat he can be with 7 receptions, 241, 2 touchdowns, one of which came in that Alamo Bowl game, 34.4 yards per reception, along with Gavin Freeman, who had 19 receptions, 95 yards, a touchdown, and 5 yards per reception. These are guys all coming back. Gavin Sawchuk chipped in with 14 receptions, 94 yards. Javante had 5 receptions for 23 as well. You also got some big-time players coming in Zion Kearney, freshman recruit, Ivan Carrion from Odessa, Texas, Zion Reagans from out of Georgia, a blaze speed guy, another one of them, and then KJ Daniels coming in, not to mention Deion Burks from Purdue, who seemingly everybody in the country, including Texas, really wanted to get their hands on in the portal, but who immediately chose Oklahoma. He had 47 receptions for 629 yards, 7 touchdowns last season for Purdue at 13.4 yards per catch. Big time grab in the portal for OU. Devon Mitchell could end up being a big time security blanket for Oklahoma as a freshman at 6'4", 247 pounds. A man among boys coming in to play tight end. Already expected to be a starter. Look, we're talking about 11 guys who caught passes in college football a year ago in this offense. Out of those 11, 8 of them scored touchdowns. To me, it's so easy for guys like Barrett Sallee to just overlook all this stuff and act like nothing's happening. But this was one of the top 5 offenses in the country. Seth Luttrell, the new offensive coordinator, co-coordinator, along with Joe John Finley, they were both on the staff last season. They both have they held the recruiting classes together. You've got an opportunity to, if you're Jackson Arnold, you can trust in the guys that you have and not try to get locked in on one person. They can make this offense easy for him by playing better defense. But if they do that, if they play the defense that we expect them to play, and that'll be the next video that we do here. I'm going to do some other videos as to why I believe that 7.5 is insanity, even with this tough schedule. But I'm going to ask you one more time. What if Jackson Arnold got all the bad stuff out of his system in the Alamo Bowl? What if he comes in ready to rock and roll, knows this offense, has his timing down with his receivers, with having the full complement of the spring and fall to work with the first team and his receivers? What if he looks like that guy that we saw at Denton Guyer? Because I know that everybody wants to believe that it's going to be so much harder in the SEC, but the truth of it is the SEC is not known for having the most explosive offenses in the country. They're known for the trenches, which is very important, but OU's bringing that with them too. I'm telling you now, I believe that even with essentially a freshman at quarterback, he's a sophomore. He got in enough games that he didn't get to redshirt. Even with the first-time starter, though, this is going to be one of the top offenses in the SEC year one. I would bet this offense is better than Texas's again. Just like it was this past season when they had all those quote-unquote studs that were supposed to be so much better than Oklahoma, yet lost to them in the Red River Shootout. Jackson Arnold has the ability to do it. We know he does. And I don't think he seems like the type of guy that's going to harp on making mistakes. They don't want him to. I think they're going to want him to make throws. But the truth is, there's a lot of things working in his favor that he doesn't have to be too crazy. He can play more relaxed because he's got a defense behind him that can shut teams down. And that's really what it's going to take for this team to take the next step anyway. The question about whether or not they can have one of the best defenses or one of the better offenses because Brent Venables being a defensive-minded head coach is silly. They've already done it. Barrett Sallee saying that they're not getting those Heisman-type quarterbacks.
What?
That's what he said. I know, that's what he said. Who wants to go first on this?
That is blasphemous. That is blasphemous.
He's not looking at who they've got. Take a look at the tape for Michael Hawkins. Take a look at it for Jackson Arnold. Take a look at it for Brandon Zerberg. Take a look at the Kevin Sperry film from the last 2 years and then turn around and see what he's got next year. Nothing changed at OU when Lincoln left, except for they actually started recruiting better everywhere. Not just on defense with Brent Venables, on offense too. 7.5 is ridiculous. 6.5 was blasphemous.
That is blasphemous. That is blasphemous.
ridiculous. And if Jackson Arnold is anywhere close to what Dylan Gabriel did last year, the SEC could be in a lot of trouble in year one from Oklahoma. Folks, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm telling you now, I believe that this Oklahoma team can make a move. I've predicted 9-3. It would not surprise me if they went 10-2. And if Jackson has a really good season and is one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the SEC right off the bat, which I believe he can be, the sky's the limit for this Sooner football team. Make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you be a part of this community. Check out our amazing partners like Mint Mobile, Devil Dog Brew and Beans. And hey, we'll talk more about that, about the defensive side of the ball coming up in a few days. We've got some more stuff coming along on both the Sooner Network with the Sooner Magic podcast, along with Hall of Fame College Football with Jason and the Coach, our other channel. Make sure you tune in. We've got lots of stuff coming down the pipe for you guys, you know, as we head into first season in the SEC. Exciting stuff. Can't wait to get into it. Hit that like button. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one.